I'm going to just introduce the artist. The information for the full programme is in the programme that you've got today, but I'm just going to very quickly introduce you to them before we head off the stage and let them go. So the artists that are sharing this afternoon are Jerome, Kevin Hunt and Amber Akaunu. You met Jerome earlier on at the start of the day as well as the new IAA Europe president. He's also the deputy chair of our board at AN as well. He's joining us now with a different hat on. Jerome's an artist that uses drawing, painting and installation, shifting collaborative and interconnected ways to explore conversations around the ambiguity of our layered identities. He's a senior lecturer of BA Fine Art Painting at University of Arts London, vice chair of AN, the Artist Information Company, as I've said, and sits on the board of directors for Black Horse Workshop. He's recently worked with Whitechapel Gallery, Phillips Auction House and Redden Museum. Kevin Hunt is a visual artist, lecturer and writer from Liverpool, working between the Midlands and northwest of England. With almost 20 years' experience as an artist and academic, his practice sits at the intersection between sculpture, functional design, installation, printmaking, and more recently writing. Drawn from personal experiences and memories he makes from a queer and working class perspective, Kevin is currently a regional editor at Corridor 8 and CVAN West Midlands Steering Group member. Amber Akaunu is Liverpool-born, Nigerian, German artist and filmmaker, documenting and imagining Black regional stories. Her work has previously exhibited at ANIVA 2023 and screened at festivals including London Short Film Festival 2024. Amber's most recent work, Dear Other Mother, which Marianne had mentioned and hopefully you've also seen, was commissioned by and exhibited at Liverpool Biennial in 2025, right now. And this is the last few days of the exhibition. Amber's also co-founder and editor of Rooted Zine, where she works to explore Black, Asian and POC artists in the northwest of England. So the artists are going to go in that order, and in fact, Amber is sharing a video, which will be how we close out the symposium as well. But I will come back very quickly just to say thank you again to everybody. So we'll leave the stage, and Jerome is up next.
I was making notes throughout the whole day. As an experience, it's quite interesting because you engage with the talk and the symposium differently. One of the things that I found that was kind of opposed to how I like to engage, that kind of relates to a point that Exodus made. I found myself having to take notes in a way that I wouldn't necessarily take notes naturally, whereas I might fluidly just be trying to experience the actual symposium. In this respect, I was trying to diligently take notes of what everybody was saying. And one of the points that Exodus made earlier in regards to education and the fact that so many of the sort of procedures that formalized education puts us through is so very clearly linked to training. There is this famous, I believe, German test or study in which they get people to respond to bells, and all of definitely in the UK, the education system being that thing where we respond literally to bells in terms of when you move, when you do anything, is all based on the bell. And I thought about the title of today's symposium in regards to Artists Make Change, and how throughout the talk I felt incredibly proud, similar to what Marlene said, to be a part of this community. I think that irrespective of the structures that exist from which we all, and the society that we all inhabit, there are things that we do as artists that we do disrupt, we do make change, and I think more importantly, we probably respond the best to change in regards to when there are moments of, disruption, whether it's caused by us or others or whatever's happening. There are artists that respond in the sense that we actively go about in our practice and daily lives and thinking of ways in which we can manifest our thoughts into reality. And then when these changing sort of events either happen or we feel need to happen, we do make these things happen. The question I asked earlier in regards to the collective and thinking about when possibly to, if ever actually, you move on from leading these changes and these strategies, is because I think it's actually incredibly important that the people, literally everybody in this room probably, that has been leading in these changes does stay around and is respected, because you may not even realize the mess that sort of Marlene speaks about. If there's a new generation that enter that mess, they might not even realize it's a mess because it's the norm in terms of, oh, this is just how it is. Larry mentioned earlier the rhythm, the polyrhythms that you mentioned earlier. I really, really resonated with that in terms of the fact that you felt your mind needs to ride polyrhythms. And one of the themes I felt went through not just your talk but others is this resilience through generational barriers. Myself, the reason why I even joined AN was because of an organization that started in my studio in response to the art school I went to, the Royal College. The East Asian, South Asian, and black women all predominantly they would come to the East Asian, South Asian, and black men and say, we've been experiencing a lot of weird things during our tutorials and conversation with tutors and other students. And we sort of came together in my studio to initially just to hear people out, and then we organized to basically go to each other's tutorials in order to be a physical sort of show of strength, so that if the person felt the need to speak up, they could, or if something happened that they probably didn't feel they could speak up about because it was a shock, we would speak up in their place. And listening to all of the speakers today, I felt that was also a theme that came through in regards to whenever there was this sort of generational barrier that is thrown up, irrespective of what it comes in what gaze it comes, whether it's in relation to disability, gender, sex, race, the artists have found ways in which to action change and to bring about. Sorry, I just seen the time, so I'll wrap it up. To action change. I've got like a load of notes, so I'm kind of freestyling here, but the sort of final thoughts I wanted to leave with is earlier when Jack was mentioning how his mind thinks in regards to the blob and the vessel. I really resonated with that because I found that whenever I approach things in a much more painterly way, in terms of being fluid and sort of responding to however things happen, not only am I happier, but I feel stronger. And I would like to just thank the speakers today, because there are certain things that have been brought up today that have essentially reaffirmed in me some of the things that I've felt, and I think it's necessary for those others in the room to hear that there are people that have gone through similar experiences, as well as I believe it's being recorded, so artists that will also listen to it will hear and likely feel inspired. But yeah, thank you.
Wow, so I've also feverishly been taking notes today. I guess the first thing that there's a certain irony about being asked to reflect on a full day of deep and urgent conversations with no time to prepare. And it sounds familiar. And that was our brief today. But it sounds familiar because that's how most artists are working and how we're forced to work. Certainly in this country, in real time, under pressure, in the gaps perhaps juggling. I guess I've also been thinking quite a lot today about imposter syndrome, a term that only one person, Thomas, mentioned, or directly mentioned today, but of course it's implied in many of the conversations. And of course, I'm sure because the statistics of working class creatives falling sharply in this industry don't lie, you know, it's something that's felt by many people in this room. I feel it now, but I refuse to feel it, and I'm learning to refuse the institutional systems in place across all aspects of this industry that enable me and many people like me to feel this way. But I guess, you know, thinking about the title of today's event, you know, I've been thinking about how can artists really make change if we often feel this way, if we often have that imposter syndrome. And I talk about this feeling as a queer, neurodiverse, northern working class lad from Liverpool, from Speak, in fact, which is a big council estate at the edge of the city, some of you might know. Apologies to anyone here from Speak before I kind of talk about it. Or maybe congratulations, because if you are here in this room from Speak, you know, people like me from the place and that situation where I'm from, you know, we're never meant to be here to do this, to make art, whatever that means. I guess I've also been thinking a lot about one of the audience questions earlier by a Finnish person earlier this morning. And I guess forgive me if I've slightly misinterpreted or bent the question and its responses to what I maybe wanted to hear or what I did hear. But I guess it felt slightly shocking, or kind of blew my mind a little bit, that the way, I guess, the posing of this question and this idea of the benefits artists might bring when working in other fields, or I guess even musing over you know, the immense or varied knowledge wealth that an artist might bring as a societal tool, for instance. I kind of found it really, kind of blew my mind thinking about this as an idea of choice, because to me, I feel like we have no choice, not here in the UK. You know, I work as a lecturer, a mentor, an art handler, a technician, a consultant, an art advisor, an editor, an admin assistant, etc., etc. And I do all those things because I have to, not always because I want to. And certainly, they don't always inform or benefit my practice. But I need to pay the bills, I need to live, I need to juggle. I guess I'm fortunate enough to be working on and off in Europe outside of this country. I guess, in fact, in the last year or so, mostly I've been showing art in Europe and not here in the UK for lots of different reasons. And earlier in the year, I spent time living and working in Norway on a residency in a city called Trondheim. I don't know if anyone's from Trondheim here, but it's a very nice place. But I guess the art system in Norway feels, or felt to me, wildly different, maybe almost alien to my experience of the art system, certainly growing up here. And I met many artists in Norway, not all, of course, but many, but I met many artists who have the opportunity to be paid a salary of some kind by the Norwegian government simply to make art. And I guess my question, let me just try and make sense of these notes, but my question to everyone here, or maybe the question really is to the system rather than to everyone here, is, you know, how can you, so thinking about this, you know, my experiences in Europe and in other countries, and thinking about this imposter syndrome, and actually Jack, wherever Jack is, who used this wonderful term earlier, of being like a high maintenance boyfriend, which I loved. But, you know, how can you actually be that high maintenance boyfriend, which is important, to be able to stand up for yourself and say what you need? You know, how can you be a successful artist and break the system if embedded within your very being, and, you know, learned from the system and forever kept inside you is an innate imposter syndrome? You know, how can you or we ask for what we need when we've always been taught not to ask? And then who is actually teaching us to get over those kind of debilitating feelings? Usually or often it may be educational institutions like art schools. And I guess I also love the point earlier that Exodus said. I won't try and say it word for word, but in the classroom, you're told to respect every adult. But of course, this is rubbish, and as we know, many adults are problematic. You know, this was probably the best little nugget from the day. But I guess maybe how I would sum all that up somehow is that being an artist and learning to be an artist is a really viable and valued career choice in many other countries outside of the UK. Why is it not here in the UK?
Yeah, I also echo the fact that this is quite difficult to sum up. It's such a long day. Yeah, I think there's been so many valuable discussions, and I kind of wanted to offer a moment to think about the things that have not been said, the things that haven't settled yet, the things we struggle to find words for. And while sitting with that, I'm going to show a film that I made a few years ago with no budget. It's just like a passion project, and it's about Liverpool's aura. Yeah.
Do you think cities have auras?
Maybe.
I think they do. And I can imagine that even when time has passed and people have moved on, the city's aura reflects everything it has been, it is, and it will be.
Like a massive, omniscient coloured ghost that's haunting us. Can't see it. So, what colour aura do you think our city has?
I think it would be red. Like a deep red, a blood red. It's so red it's almost black, and it shadows over the city like a curse. Or perhaps it's not red and it's more of a cool toned brown, like dried soil. The same soil that has buried bodies and secrets, but has also birthed new life and hope. Or if not brown, then it has to be blue, like every shade of blue. A navy as dark as the night sky, dotted with a map of stars providing direction and liberation. An Atlantic blue, representing an underwater world where dignity is worth more than life. But then maybe it's a bright orange colour, so bright you can't help but smile, because in our city, whether it's right or wrong, we hide our problems with a joke and some kindness.
Or maybe it'll be white. Like a fresh start, a new slate, trying to make things right.
But that doesn't reflect the city's past. Instead of white, it could be every colour, represent everything and everyone. Maybe a city's aura is more complex than we think. Maybe it changes over time, or it's layered and different for different areas.
Yeah, maybe.